Hey, what's up everybody? Let's get right into this video and start off by rolling over one of my older characters. I did this character maybe 10 months ago or so, not quite a year old yet, but I wanted to do a new character. It always sucks to kind of cover some of this old work, but you know, I don't always have wall spaces. I want to do something fun, so I figured I would cover this and this would be a nice flat surface to do a new character on. Now, the goal of this new character, this new wall, if you will, is to simply create something out of my head and just freestyle something. I don't want to say that I like to give the negative comments any kind of attention, but I'm only human, and I have been seeing a couple comments here and there on people saying, you know, why use a doodle grid? You shouldn't have to use a doodle grid. And you're right. Like, I don't really have to use a doodle grid. I don't have to, you know, do any of these techniques, but I like to show them to the viewers. So I figured, let's make a video where I go to a spot. I don't really have a plan other than just colors. So I did pack some skin tones and some pinks for like the hair and some grayish blues for the clothing. That was my only thought process. So I went to a spot, and this whole video is going to be about me just mapping out a character off the top of my head and having some fun. Now, with that being said, there are some huge advantages, obviously, to the doodle grid, where it saves time. You can just kind of put the reference on the wall and figure out exactly where you want it laid out. So you're not making as many mistakes or kind of, you know, you're just saving time at the end of the day. I also want to point out that all my videos where I've used the doodle grid were drawings that were from my head. I pre-drew them and just used the doodle grid to put them on a wall quicker and more efficiently. If you want to see some of those videos where I tell you how to use a doodle grid, there are plenty of videos like that out there. Just check any of my playlist for graffiti. There's a lot that have either a doodle grid, some have projector use if it's like my backyard and I was feeling lazy, or I've projected for businesses that I had to be in and out of as quick as possible. Now, with all that being said, I have this whole mapped out portion going in real time. Usually my videos are sped up. So let's dive right in and kind of talk about my process and what I'm thinking as I'm mapping this character out. So as you saw, I started with the right eye and kind of made some center lines and put the left eye in and started working on the nose. I work on characters differently every time. It kind of sometimes depends on the wall as well. Now, what I mean by it depending on the wall is if there's a huge wall, I may want to map out like a giant circle if I'm doing a character to kind of imply where the head's going to lie. But with the shape of this wall, the size of this wall, I kind of could see a little bit in my head where the character's head would lie, where it would fall inside the framed area. I know there's some artists out there that make statements like, oh, you know, I see everything in my head before I do it. I'm not really one of those artists. I get an idea of what I want the character to look like. It typically never looks like that, but that is the exciting part for me. I knew I wanted to draw a female character. I had no idea what I was going to do. I just wanted to have like a good flow and fit to this wall. So I'm also using the wall space to kind of navigate around. You can see I'm working on the ear right now, and it kind of touches the edge of the wall. And I think I go in and correct that to shorten it a little later in the video, because as you can see, I'm also stepping back. That is a huge advantage. You want to make sure that you're stepping back as much as possible when you're mapping things out like this. When you're up close, it's so hard to get a feel for it because things aren't looking right. If you're standing and you're looking towards the ground, but you're so close, you're not getting the full perspective as if you would step back and get the full image. And at the end of the day, this isn't going to be perfect, and I'm okay with that. Would I have loved to like use some tool like Photoshop and just like kind of select this and move it to the left? Absolutely. But I'm also aware that I can utilize things like her hair to take up space on the left. And that's kind of another thing I mean by utilize the wall space, find a flow. If there's some negative area on the wall, some negative space, take advantage of it in a creative way. Another suggestion for freestyling is making sure that you're doing something that's kind of comfortable to you. For instance, for me, I love doing 3/4 angles on heads, on faces, because to me, it's just the most exciting view. You see the most of the character. You get both sides of the eyes, so you can also play with expression. You can see I kind of mess with the eyebrows to kind of imply a certain expression. At this point, we're getting back to what I discussed earlier about figuring out a creative way to take up that left side, the negative space that I had. It's now kind of filled with the hair. I know that there's some space at the bottom left, and I'm going to figure out a solution for that as well. Spoiler alert, it's my signature. Eye direction can definitely tell a lot about the character. You want to be well aware of where the character's looking. In this case, I kind of wanted it looking slightly at the viewer, slightly upper right, just to kind of, make it more intriguing, make it more interesting. You may notice that this thing's getting pretty sketchy. There's kind of a lot of scribbling going on with the can. I enjoy approaching a wall like a piece of paper and just loosely sketching with one can, but then using another can afterwards to kind of clean up portions and let me know exactly what lines I want to keep and which lines I want to discard later. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I wish I had a different tone. It's kind of a similar tone, so it's a little hard to see on camera. But that's another thing. If you're going to a wall, maybe bring a lighter color to sketch with first and then get a darker color to really define the lines that you want to keep. This is something I tend to forget about while I'm packing. I usually just pack my paint colors I need and just throw whatever random scrap cans I have to use to map out my first lines, basically. So whatever rough lines I'm putting, I just kind of throw a can in the bag and hope for the best, but I think that's something I need to be more aware of. Another great tool to use is the roller and the bucket paint. You can always use that as a giant eraser. Anytime you make an error, it's just paint. You can get rid of it and start over. And speaking of the bucket paint that I used, I actually had this left over from a mural I did for a tattoo shop. And it was nice that the color of spray paint I had matched the bucket paint perfectly. So I did have a can that I could use to clean up lines. Instead of using the bucket paint, sometimes it's nice when you have the same tone. This hardly ever happens. Like I said, this was for a job I did for a mural. And if you got it, you might as well use it. You'll see that color come into place a little later where I use it to kind of erase some of these lines. I didn't need to do all the erasing and fixing that I did. I don't know why I did. I think I just kind of got into it and wanted to see this sketch as perfected as I could. Because like I said, I don't freestyle as much these days, but I gotta tell you, I'm actually enjoying it more. I'm going back to my roots before we knew about things like doodle grids, before projectors were around. And I'm actually really enjoying it a lot. Also, I didn't really mean to say before projectors were around. I'm not that old. I meant in graffiti. People weren't using projectors for graffiti way back in the day. Everyone was just kind of using what they could. And I just miss those days. I miss people being a little more creative. I feel like with VR now, I'm not going to lie, it just makes things so easy. Things are different. I kind of miss the old days. Everything was more impressive. I know by saying that, there's going to be some artists out there that are offended. I know they're going to say, what does it matter when you see the final outcome? That's all that matters. Sure, to you, that's all that matters. If I see something impressive, largely mapped out on a building, and I find out someone did it without projecting, without a doodle grid, yeah, I'm way more impressed by that. Sorry. Like, why wouldn't you be? Instead of using all these like tools that people use these days, I understand it's made things more efficient. I'm not against them. I'm just stating that I am far more impressed by someone that can do it without using those tools. I would hope you would agree with that. Sorry for the rant, but getting back to this character, you can see at this point, I am using the color of the wall, the color of the bucket paint, I should say. And I'm just kind of going in and getting rid of some lines. I'm over fine tuning this sketch. I should not get this attached to it. I should already be moving into color at this point. But like I said, Sometimes I just kind of enjoy sketching on the wall. I don't do this as often lately, so it was kind of nice to just take my time. Again, this was not for like a business or anything. This was something fun for me to do, something meditative. Do not say some dumb comment like, oh, you could meditatively paint my garage. Yeah, not going to happen. Sorry. But when I go to these spots and I get to just zone out, either be by myself or hang out with friends, it's awesome. It is very relaxing. And this day was perfect. It was not too cold out, not too hot out. It's fall right now, so it is my favorite time of year to be painting. And I had an absolute blast just kind of seeing what would happen on this little doorway. One thing I will ask you guys to write in the comments is let me know, do you prefer videos where I'm slowing down this process like this and I'm showing, how I am putting this onto the wall? This is something that I have been asked to do from some people. I know I've seen some comments where people say, can you do a raw video like Smo does? My buddy Smo, he's great at that. He makes it feel like you're there painting with him. You can hear the can, everything. The problem for me is that I can't have the audio, because typically, like I said, I'm with people. I think at this point, someone had stopped by that works at this place to talk to me. So there's always conversations going on. There's always things happening that are distracting. And honestly, it probably takes me twice as long to paint because things like that tend to happen. So it is hard to do like a raw format video where you feel like you're painting there on the spot with me. But let me know, do you like when I slow the process down and kind of show the stages in real time? One thing I think I might go back to is in some of my older videos, I was using the chest camera to get a better view, to kind of show the line work up close and show more of my process. I'm noticing as I'm watching this back that occasionally some of the stuff gets blocked by me. So it'd be better to kind of get like a close-up view, but also maybe go back and forth so that you guys can see from a distance how the whole image comes to life. It's a lot of experimenting and a lot of work on my end, but I'm trying to do everything. I'm trying to do the camera angles for you guys. So I appreciate, any feedback, and just understand I'm trying my best here, but there's a lot to do on the spot while I'm also focused on painting. Here you could see that I'm kind of dragging her hair down on that side to kind of take up more of that space that we talked about earlier. Again, I will be putting a signature under the hair in that space. I'm also fixing the right side, the shoulder a little bit more. I've noticed things as I was stepping back. Some of the jumps in the camera frames are me stepping back. I didn't want to just have this be so slow and so boring, but again, I wanted to give you guys a sense of real time. And now it's time to finally color this thing in. Okay, so we could see that I am starting with the hair. If you guys watch my videos, you know that I like to get some of the tedious stuff done. I like to get the furthest point of focus out of the way. So background stuff, the hair is kind of behind her and then above her. I'm not really worried about the right side yet, but I want to get all that done before I start basing the face, the skin tones in the face. I also decided to use a slightly darker tone of the blue background to create a little shadow underneath the hair. And you'll see that this kind of helps you to envision that the light source is coming from the upper left, which is actually where the sun is right now. You can see there's an actual shadow cast on the frame on the left side of me. There's that shadow coming off where the wall kind of goes in a little bit. So I'm utilizing the lighting that's at the spot to be the correct lighting for the character. This can definitely be helpful overall for photos, for, when people come see this in person, they'll see that most of the daytime, the light source is coming from a correct area. Now, with that being said, you'll also see that there is a big heavy glare on the top left where the sun is actually hitting. The sun kind of goes around this building, always stays kind of on the left side. But in the afternoon, I will start to get a shadow from the top of the building when the sun wraps around. So throughout the process of this video, the lighting will get better. And now that I'm working on the hair on the right side, which actually overlaps the face a little bit, I'm still not concerned. I'm still mapping it in, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use line work to kind of break it apart later. So there's that strand of hair on the right side of her face that goes in front of the face. I'm going to map it in, but then I'm going to line it and it's going to look like it's in front of the face afterwards. But for the time being, just mapping in the skin tone. I'm not too worried about it. Now, as far as shading goes, I tend to like to base one solid color in the whole section. I know it's kind of a waste of paint. I am trying to be more aware of it. It's tough when I have a can. I'm like, oh, let's just get excited and go to the wall and use it. But yeah, you could see that I'm layering highlights on top of my midtone. So I tend to just like to base that midtone, get the coverage, and then just, make the contrast happen from there. You'll also see that I'm mapping out the different tones of the spray paint for the skin tones on the cheek there. I'm just making a little line and I'm referencing that to see what tones I want to use where in the face. Now, the only reason I'm doing that is because I'm using different paint for this piece. Typically, I use Montana Black. I was using 94 for a lot of this, at least for most of the skin tones. So I'm not as familiar with the paint. I wanted to just kind of see. So if you happen to try something new, maybe this is a good method for you. Just kind of make those lines so that you could see what looks best next to what. It's always nice when you know what tones in a certain color work very well together. Sometimes companies will make the steps of colors that they think are best for like a gradient, and you might find something that works differently. You might want to mix something instead of everything being like, tones of purple from like a dark purple to light purple. Maybe you start messing with some blues in there so that it's like dark purple to like a light blue or something. So I always try to keep track of what color combos I like. And then when I order paint, I just do the same thing. This paint was purchased from my local art store, and I just wanted to try it out, test it, and get familiar with it. As I'm working down the face with the skin tones, you can see I'm just applying that same kind of formula where I'm just adding contrast, but I'm also going in with a little hue of like a pink tone. And that's just adding some warmth to the piece and playing off the same tones that are in the hair color. So it's nice to see a little repetition. Of course, all of these blends tend to make the face look a little blurry, but that is nothing that can't be fixed with some fine line work. And earlier I spoke about utilizing repetition throughout a piece. You could see that for the shirt, I'm using the same tones that I used in the eyes. So that's going to be a nice way to replay colors throughout the piece, make the viewer's eyes kind of move around. And this is almost most helpful when you have a monochromatic palette, like less is more. I'm not saying just do all blues. You could. But it's nice when you limit your palette to certain colors and you know that you're going to utilize them throughout the piece and kind of create repetition and pattern. Whenever I have an opportunity, I try to sneak the crew names into my artwork. So you could see I am putting a little shout out to the Na crew on the front of the shirt. And I am also doing a shout out to the YIC crew. These are two crews that I am a part of. So I'm just kind of trying to incorporate it with the clothing. I don't want anything that's too crazy because sometimes I feel like there's just too much font on the wall next to the character and they start to compete. So if I can sneak it in and have it in a pleasing way, I will do so. I also know that at some point I have to add my own signature and sneak an LM in there, so that will come later. As far as some of the caps that I'm using to do this piece, I am using the stencil cap to do some of the font that I just showed you guys. And one of the things I like doing is mapping out the font with a stencil cap and then going in with a thin cap to kind of color in between the letters. But the stencil cap just kind of helps me get the definition and those hard edges a little easier. I would say 90% of the rest of the piece, all the line work, has been done with the level 1 cap. Love that cap. That is my favorite cap to use. I just use the stencil cap when I have really tight areas I have to fit into. That's what she said. Now you'll see that I am lining that strand of hair I talked about earlier in front of the face, and it just has way more definition. It definitely reads as it's in front of the face now because of the line work. I could have lined the hair that was behind. I could have lined the hair that's in the upper left. Honestly, I just didn't feel like it needed it, so I left it. Here's the little LM tattoo that I'm sneaking into the face. And as soon as I line it with the stencil cap, I just kind of dust over it so it looks like it's settled into the skin like a tattoo would be. Watching this back, it's pretty amusing to me to just kind of see how blurry things were with all those blends, but just how clear things get with a little bit of line work and definition, just creating some hard edges next to the soft shading. Now I want to focus on filling some of that negative space that's in the bottom left of the picture. And I told you guys earlier I was going to put a signature, so this is where I'm going to place it. And to map this out, this is what I was saying too, is that I like mapping things like this out with the stencil cap, and then I fill them with the level 1 cap. Everybody works differently. Sure, I could do this with just the level 1 cap. I feel it's a little more crisp with the stencil cap, and the stencil cap just helps me map it out. But filling it with the level 1 cap definitely saves paint, because if you guys have used the stencil cap before, you know that that can be a major paint dumper. Once the signature was done, I realized there was also some space on the left there. So I decided, why not put like the little heart emoji, the little like button kind of thing. While I'm on that, actually, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, please. Thank you guys. Okay, moving on to the eyes. You guys should know by now, I try to save my favorite part till the end, so we are finally at one of my favorite parts and getting closer and closer to the end. Another thing that always seems to change the character dramatically is whenever I add the eyelashes. It's always cool to just kind of put those thick eyelashes on and make the eyes pop out more. And as I'm watching this back, I think for this character, I'm noticing I use the stencil cap a little more than I may have mentioned earlier. I'm definitely utilizing it a lot in this piece. And as we near the end, I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to all of my paid Patreon members. You guys are the best. If you'd like to join and help support and always stay in the loop, I will leave a link in the description of this video to join my Patreon. Another way to help support is to go over to my website, kbuart.com. I've got brand new merch available. There's hoodies just in time for the cold weather. I've got new t-shirts. There's a huge sale going on as well. My old t-shirts are 75% off. They are so cheap. There's prints that are 25% off. All of my original artwork is 25% off as well. So save yourself some money, check it out, and maybe pick yourself up something. The sale will be from now until Christmas, so there's still time. Now let's get back and finish this painting up. Just a couple more highlights, and without further ado, here it is, the final outcome.